Right, ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Nick Hilkins, inside the car now, West Ham Fan TV. We was outside, but there's biblical weather, so we couldn't. We filmed all the fan cams, but we can hear is, which is obviously not ideal. But I thought what we'd do, just in case, instead, as I'm driving home with Marsha, I thought we'd have a little review of the game while we're here, a little chat about everything. But Marsha, I've got to say this. From the get-go, before we get into the game, wasn't a very impressive performance today. Wasn't fantastic.
No, not at all. I think I'd like to say we expected that. I think, like we've mentioned before, with the amount of players that we've got out and, suspensions and bits and pieces like that. But I think as soon as the game started, you could tell, we started on the back foot again. We had to try and get into the game. We weathered the storm a lot, especially two or three certain occasions in the first half, especially. But then we get the goal, so it's a well taken goal. I need to really watch it back, to be fair. I think where we were sitting didn't really help us out a lot, sort of down close to the front and behind posts and poles and whatever else. But yeah, we needed to get more into it. I think January, rest of the window's got to be interesting now.
Well, it was interesting. Alvarez was out, which I thought caused a massive gap in the midfield. I mean, sometimes we was nowhere near their midfield. I mean, and it was a bit worrying at times.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we sat far too deep. I think the gap between Ings, who played in the 10 row, and obviously the three holding midfielders, if you like, for want of a better word. I think they, Sheffield, especially second half, you could tell the amount of room that they had a lot more space than what we should have, given them and made available to them. And I think that is just because we're so tight and compact in the middle. We're trying not to let it all happen and come through. And you saw our deep ball passes. I'd like to think that, maybe if we get a Calvin Phillips or someone of that ilk, that he could maybe sit with Alvarez when he comes back in and fit, which would allow Wall Prowse to sort of go further forward and be more dimensional sort of in that middle. That's where the game's made and won as well, isn't it? So you've got to be alert and with it in that midfield. And I think today we just too lackadaisical, too many gaps. I think we let them play too much. We didn't shut the ball down, especially when Wall Prowse obviously got the booking, which was never a booking. But it just eases off, obviously, for us to be able to put a foot in. And as I say, the window's got to be interesting for us, especially in the midfield as well. So we need something else. I think we're just lacking something. I know Alvarez is out, but I think we're just lacking something going forward in that 10 row as well. And obviously with the boys that are missing, it's nice to have Bowen back, but I think the two others that we're missing, Lucas is a big thing, and obviously Kudus as well. Yet another game that passes by. If we had a full team, then would have been a totally different game and result. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, when you think about the players we got out, I mean, Bowen came back today. I didn't think he quite looked on song, to be honest. I think he was a bit worried about his ankle. Paquetá out, doing good work, apparently over in Vinny Junior's house.
Yeah.
Doing some work over there. Kudus obviously still in the African Cup of Nations. We really need him to come bottom, and I mean that with no disrespect to Ghana, but we really need him to come bottom.
You're saying it now. You're going to get the penalties.
No, but we do, because we're struggling. I mean, that man's magic. He's what he's doing over there at the moment. What he done the other day was unbelievable. The first goal that he scored was unreal. But then you got like the likes of Antonio, who we haven't seen in so long. I mean, there is talk about dipping into the transfer market. The Phillips deal's come up. I'm not sure where this has come from really, because it's come out of the blue.
Yeah.
Do you think we could be looking at something that we don't really need to fill at the moment? I mean, we don't really know what the situation was with Alvarez, but when you think about the positions that we need to fill at the moment, is that a priority? Should we be spending 170 grand a week or whatever it is to fill that position when we really need a forward players?
Yeah, exactly. We've been saying that, haven't we? Like when we lost Rice in the summer, we knew that was inevitable. My opinion, I think they've wasted so much time. The reinforcements that we've got in for Rice have been brilliant, but we need to get the striker base sorted out. And once we get that sorted, then we can maybe bring someone in that you can play around and bring others into play as well. Be clever about it, be sort of slick about it. Don't say too much.
We need, mate. We don't exactly need someone to come and tear everything to pieces. but we need to impact off the bench, and I don't feel like that's what we've got. We have got no impact off the bench.
Especially when we got the injuries. We just spoke in the car before going on, didn't we? That we can see that, the bench today consisted of 2 players that have been there long serving, like we say, Bonner and Cresswell. Fabianski's done a bit of time as well. But away from that, Callum Marshall, I know he's not going to get a major run. Obama, I think with, jury's out. I think a lot of, opinions have been that he maybe need to go out on loan. He's not at this level. He's not, what we need at the moment. He may be in years to come. But while he's still young, learning the trade, obviously, as you do, maybe the lower leagues would fit him. But then we need to find somebody. I know we've been linked with that Boniface today, but then a few people have said on the way up that he's out till April. Surely, if that's the case, the club will be aware and been made aware of that. But yeah, with the Phillips one, I think, like you said, to come in at probably the highest paid player, I think is a bit much. But then we've said, haven't we, that if he comes in, is he going to be part of the deal that might see Paqueta to City? We don't know. We know there's an 85 million clause in his contract, so that could be a big interesting thing. But I can see what the Phillips thing is. I think maybe, Souček's run his course a little bit. I think he may be the man that, but like I said to you before, he might be the man to come out of it and be an impact off the bench, like you say, which is what we're missing, what we're discussing. But Phillips being in there might allow him to sit with Alvarez and then allow Ward-Prowse to come further forward and maybe as progressed as in the 10 role, so he can sit behind the striker. Because once we got that front three sorted, Bowen, Paqueta, Kudus, and they're on song, we knew what they're like. Obviously, we beat the teams that we have in December. Some would like to beat them in a calendar year, as we've said before, let alone a month. So it's interesting. We've got a big week now coming up, obviously, I think a few days into the week after, but they know what we need to do. They're not stupid, are they? The supporters know what we need. They're not silly. They know what we need as well. We're watching the same game, so let's wait and see what occurs.
A little couple of positives from today's game. I mean, before we get right into it, Danny Ings, I think he had a very good game. We see him getting a bit of stick before the game. They was warming up just in front of us, and sort of every time he sort of put the ball in the back of the net, people were ironically cheering. Every time he missed, they was sort of laughing. It didn't seem to please him too much. You see him sort of shaking his head. He didn't really like that. And Bowen was having a go back. Yeah. Did you think that might have spurred him into action today? Because he was chasing everything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, as I say, it's one of the games that we've been waiting for him to put in a performance like that. And fair play to him. He won the penalty that obviously got us in front before the change.
He's very good, mate. Very good playing in that position as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, like you say, he's got that sort of turn about him that he had on Tuesday night, didn't he, at Bristol? And it didn't really come off, but he was trying to get a shot off. He had that big opportunity where he could have just slotted it in, and I think, Sheffield at the back there done well to sort of get there before he would sort of maybe hopefully slot it away and hit the target. But yeah, that stuff beforehand, they're doing all their movement, the warming up, the shooting. I mean, all right, he's missing sitters, but I mean, as long as he's doing that then and then not doing it in the game and saving it for the game as well, which obviously, he helped, but he didn't hit the target himself.
Yeah.
I did see Bowen turn as if to say to the supporters, leave it out, and we're trying new things. And to be fair, that little bit of movement and darting about that they were doing as a sort of routine exercise to maybe, introduce into the game was quite a good thing. But you want to see him hit the target a bit, and I know it doesn't matter so much and you don't read into it, but I didn't really agree with the sort of stick he was getting. I think, that probably spurred him on, but he'd like to have had a bit of support, I think, prior to the game at the same time, preparing the right way. I actually said to a few of the others when he was warming up, he was in short sleeves, everyone else was quite wrapped up. All right, it wasn't as cold as what we might have thought it was going to be, but he looked up for it and he looked hungry for a game that, he might be able to control, for want of a better word. And although he did in certain spells, you could tell at the end when he came off, I don't think he really wanted to, and I think he had done his part, he'd done his bollocks, and fair play.
He looked gutted not to have scored the goal either. As he come off, he had an opportunity to make it 3-1, which obviously we went on to rue. But into the game, mate, Cornet makes it 1-0, which I think was. I don't think either team had got their foot into the game. Another defensive mistake. You got to say this as well. Another defensive mistake. Not Ogbonna, sorry. Zuma losing flight of the ball underneath it, gets cut back. Areola makes a bit of a mess of it. Straight into Brereton Diaz. He puts it back in the back of the net.
Yeah, again, and I think the centre backs have got to, they've got to be more alert. They've got to be more aware to it. The amount of times that we said, can they play together? Who knows? That's probably an underlying question. Can they do it together? I think the voicing, the communication, I think between them is near on non-existent. Could Areola have done better? Probably, like we said, didn't we? You said it, made a valid point. Why are you not pushing the ball wide? Why are you pushing it back in the mix? And although we should have been dealing with it, and many other teams would have, that's the sort of thing that happens to us, and that's got to be knocked out your game before you carry on. You know, we're conceding too many silly goals. Beren Diaz, you know, we distinguished hadn't scored a goal in over 20 games for Villarreal, and not even Chile or whatever in the international thing front. And now he helps himself to a goal today, and you know, really got to eliminate that out of our game, and you know, we'll concede a lot less silly goals as well.
Very even second half, I thought as well. I thought both teams had spells. We found ourselves in front in about the 80th minute, and I thought to myself, you know, we're going to see this one out. Listen, what's conspired after then? I mean, it looked, you know, on the day you got a red card. Two red cards, yeah. But what conspired with the penalties decisions, mate? I mean, you know, I think our first one was a nailed on penalty, and then we get ourselves in front. They get a red card. We give the ball away sloppily. Then we get a red card. They swing the ball in the box. I mean, we've seen it. But look, I had no arguments at the time, but after seeing it back, and this was both incidents. Both were really badly wrong. I mean, the centre forward's thrown an elbow at Areola, and somehow he's given away a penalty. I mean, Areola was knocked bandy by this elbow. How is that decision given?
We've seen it many times, haven't we? But I think I know we said it after the game immediately when we come out the ground, didn't we? That it's probably one of the worst refereeing performances, especially that we've had against us. And
I just thought he let too much go. He lost control of the game, I thought.
Yeah, I thought for both sides it did. Like, you know, it wasn't just us. I think it was more so us in the end of it, from what, like you say, transpired towards the end of the game and how the penalties come about. But if you're McBurney and sticking your elbow up like that and virtually knocking him out, I actually immediately looked at Souček afterwards. It was literally hearing on the, you know, the medical staff and team and that, as if to say this was a really bad one, and it was bad enough from what we've seen. But how you get away with an elbow primarily, that's where the foul is, and then we give away the penalty. I don't.
I mean, he hasn't even made contact with the player.
No,
you know, it looked like to me he cleaned him out with his fist.
The fact that there was carry on, obviously, with the fella that I think handballed it, and it went out obviously past the side netting as well. I think they carried on like it weren't even a problem.
Yeah.
And then, you know, ref calls it up. You know, our one is a blatant penalty, it's clear as day for all to see. But I mean, you know, their one leaves a lot to be desired. But then again, we put ourselves in that position, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, you know, Kufel puts us in a position.
Well, that, you know, that, out of the two incidents, when you see them, mate, that weren't even the most shocking one. The most shocking one is 2-2. I mean, the Sheffield United fans are going mad, as you would, coming from that position down, when you think you're dead and buried, down to 10 men, and then you find yourself in 2-2. 30 seconds later, mate, I mean, the ball's come over, Bowen. I can't see. I mean, he gives a free kick their way, but I cannot see what he's looking at there. I can't see what he's looking at, and I can't see how VAR hasn't pulled that up.
And he's right involved with it as well, isn't he? The ball comes over, they get their penalty, that transpires how that comes about, straight down the other end. And I thought we were watching fucking rugby as opposed to football for a minute. I mean, the fact that he had him round the waist or virtually around that area, and he's just literally mauled him to the floor. Pulled him to the floor. You can't, you know, modern day football. Yeah, exactly. Nowhere near the ball, not looking at it, didn't know where the ball was, too concentrated on the player, which you see a lot. You largely see that when you're trying to defend like that. But how it's not given, I mean, when we were coming out, a lot of people were saying that they've seen it on the screens. A lot of the pundits were saying, obviously, that it's a standard penalty. It's easy decision to make. But then, I've said it a million times, Nick, about these refs. You know, they're sorted in the pocket every year. They've got to be in excess of six-figure sums for the year.
Yeah.
Why are they not being made to come out or look at a monitor and say, that's live time? How that didn't even go to VAR is beyond me. I imagine it's because the communication between the hub and the referee at the time, when it's live, is turning around and saying there's no need to look at it. It's not a penalty. But like you say, that's where they should be questioned, isn't it? You know, you're asking me, but why are they not being pulled up and saying, you know, even VAR and questioning it and saying, well, that's got to be a penalty.
Yeah.
Any other day, that's a penalty. If that's up the other end again, we concede another penalty. But it's, I say you win some, lose some. We've come out with a draw, and I think maybe in retrospect, I think that's probably a fair result.
Yeah, I think on a balance of play, I think it was a fair result. But as I say, when you're sort of robbed of two decisions like that, it does make it hard. But Listen, I always thought we'd struggle in this period. Sheffield United, I thought were poor. I didn't think much of. That they're struggling for a reason. I mean, that was their 10th point today. I think they'll end up back, unless there's point deduction. I think they'll end up back in the Championship. But I think
they can't beat a team that we've got, obviously, with the players that we had out, and the players that were there today available to try and do something for us. Then, like you say, they're there for a reason. If they can't beat a team like that we shift out today, then they're going to be dead and buried, I think.
Yeah, I think, as I said, past the first 11 for us, mate. I think we're a pretty poor team.
We are, of course we are. Yeah,
we struggle to pass the ball at times today.
Yeah, of course we do, but we make wrong decisions at the right times. We get hold of the ball. Fornals was doing it quite a lot.
Yeah.
I think Emerson was arguably one of our best players again. Without him, we'd struggle even more. So I'm glad that he's there. Ings obviously done well for what he did. Bowen was off it, but I think he's coming back in after a slight layoff. I think. I say with the best will in the world, yes, we want an FA Cup run, but I think next weekend we'll see another break, and then hopefully by the time we have Bournemouth on the Thursday or whenever it is, and we've got a few bodies back to say, look, get the right players back in the right positions, see if we've acquired anyone in the window for the rest of the time remaining, and then we go in the Bournemouth game hopefully with a bit more about us than what we've had.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of West Ham Fan TV's post-match reaction. That was Marshy. Sorry about the fan cams today. The wind has literally blown it all out the window, to be quite honest with you. I mean, sorry to the guys that did contribute today, but we will be back for building up towards the Bournemouth game. If you're new around here, subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with the morning after the game before, where I'll be sure be moaning more about them decisions, and I'm going to fucking go right into them, I think, and the referees, and what I think's got to change to make this better, because it's becoming a joke. I think on the balance of play, I think Marshy's right. I think it was a fair result between two poor teams. But there we go. But thank you very much for joining. One thing left to say: come on, your hands.